We have today on the call, we have Simon Ayres and Ruth Richmond, hopefully from BEIS, so Simon Ayres from TrustMark. We're hoping also that ICF are going to say a few words, and Ruth will introduce them. But we hope to be able to get through some of your questions about the Green Home Grant, about what's going on, what's happening with payments, and what's happening with the help desk, as well as a couple of questions for BEIS regarding general updates and how things are progressing. I don't know if you want to start, Ruth, with just a quick sort of update on where things are. Simon has said he is pressed for time. He has to leave in sort of 20 minutes. So we'll maybe press on to him fairly quickly afterwards. But if you want to do a roundup first.
Get myself off mute there, or that's not going to help at all, is it? I wanted to thank you all for being flexible on the timings for today's call. I'm sure a lot of you in the current situation I am trying to fit stuff around homeschooling, and I'm afraid I could only come in the afternoon today. So I'm very, very grateful for you for rearranging around my diary in that sense. And I'm sure if we don't get to as many questions as you might want to, I'm sure that Kenneth will send them on to me afterwards. He usually does, so I shall look forward to them. I was going to start with a quick overview on where we are currently from the BEIS perspective. We're around about 20,000 vouchers issued. That is obviously not as many as we would like at this point. We wanted it to be much higher, but it is getting better. More are coming out every day, and we're working really closely with ICF scheme administrators to try and work through any issues that are still holding any further vouchers back, and to get those vouchers issued. We are actually looking to publish some official stats for the scheme soon, because I know there's been a lot of interest from this audience and from others on asking about exactly what measures, what regions, what vouchers are being issued, that sort of thing. So we are looking at publishing some official stats. Unfortunately, I was hoping that I would be able to say that I'd be able to say when they were coming today, but unfortunately it hasn't been confirmed yet. But it is in progress. It will be coming soon, so I'm sure that will be of interest to everyone when it actually happens. I do know that a number of you have experienced delays in payments of the vouchers. I know a lot of you have contacted me about it separately, and I was going to quickly follow up on some of that. I can confirm that the majority of vouchers are now being paid. There isn't a large backlog of redeemed vouchers waiting payment. I'm afraid I don't have the exact numbers on the server because it's a number that changes daily. I'm not aware that there are a lot of vouchers still outstanding for payment. I thought it worth setting out the process by which a voucher is paid, because it might help people understand what might be holding them up, what the issues are, where they've had them, and if they are still having issues, they'll help you understand what might sort those out. So on the it's a 4-step process, and it's obviously the customer has to redeem the voucher, and that includes confirming the work has been done to their satisfaction, they've paid their portion, and uploading the invoice. The job needs to be lodged with TrustMark, and the installer also needs to complete all the requirements of the scheme in Sightline, so uploading photos, all the things that we've talked about in previous meetings. Once all that's happened, the scheme administrator can then check that all that's happened properly and that any other conditions of the voucher have been met. And at that point, if that particular installation is selected for an audit, that's when it will happen. And once all that's happened, then a payment can happen. So obviously the audit coming in will lengthen the process, but generally the bit from the kind of from the scheme administrator, from when the customer and the installer have done the work they need to do, the bit from there to payment runs quite smoothly. Most of the challenges, I think, have been earlier on with, or my understanding is that most of the issues have been earlier on, where, for example, customers haven't redeemed their vouchers properly, or there's been problems with the information flow along the way. And then a few people, I think, have been caught up with audits that got delayed in we've got delays happening with weather conditions and COVID, perhaps delaying audits. So so I understand there have been delays there. I also understand they are moving a lot fast. This is moving a lot faster now. So if you are still having problems there, it'd be helpful to understand more about those. Maybe not in this audience, because obviously I can't take specific inquiries here. But if you do want to get in touch with me or with ICF colleagues around specific issues, we can potentially try and see what we can do to move them forward. Because my understanding is that payments should now be moving a lot faster than they were in the immediate sort of run up and aftermath of Christmas. And it's one thing that's important to note is if the customer hasn't declared they are satisfied, or if there has been an issue at the TrustMark lodgement process, the voucher cannot be paid. The system is set up to make sure that those checks have happened, because that's how we know that the standards have been complied with. That's how we know that the customer is getting what they're expecting. So if there's been a problem there, we cannot pay it, and so that's something to potentially look at if there is a problem within the payment. The other thing I was going to talk about briefly was the change to terms and conditions that we made in January. And I'm sure many of you will have seen this, but I thought it was quickly worth, and I think I did mention it actually last time we met in December, but I thought it was worth doing a quick recap on that. So the key change here was around subcontracting. And the change here was to bring the scheme in line with the standards. Because before this change, the scheme T's and C's didn't allow for subcontracting to non-PAS or MCS certified installer, and that obviously wasn't compliant with the standards that do allow for that and set out where the responsibilities lie if you do that. So we don't see this as a decrease in standards for the scheme. The main contractor still has to be the named installer on the voucher. This change just allows for them to subcontract the work if they want to, while retaining responsibility for the way it's done. There were also some other smaller changes. They were more about making sure that things that were already in there were properly clear. So, for example, there was something around the definition of customer default. There's also something around, there was also a change around quotes, around the detail of quotes. So around the fact that that can't include a cost of supplying a quote. Which was already in the rules, but it wasn't very clear. There was some clarity around deposits. So again, this is a rule you were probably all already aware of in the scheme, but it was making sure that a deposit on a low-income customer can only apply for additional work beyond the grant limit. That was already in there, but it wasn't as clear as it could be. There was also something around the customer contribution, and the fact that that is a condition of voucher eligibility. So so you can't say you can't just decide not to take it to get a voucher paid. There is a customer contribution that's a part of the voucher eligibility. And also the requirement that installers can't submit an application on behalf of the customer. And I know we've spoken about that one before in these meetings as well. So they were already in the T's and C's. We just made them a bit clearer in the wording. So I'm sure there are lots of questions from all of you. So I'm going to stop talking now. And I know obviously Simon's ready to speak as well. Kenneth's already mentioned there are a few colleagues from ICF here. I won't introduce them now, but I'm sure they will if they speak. They're really here to understand your questions and concerns. They may well step in with responses to questions if there are, if there are things that they can answer better than me, because they're actually in the detail of dealing with the administration of the scheme, whereas obviously I'm not. What I will say is that we can't deal with inquiries about specific vouchers in this meeting. We'll be looking at providing general comments. And of course, we really value your feedback, and we do try and take it away to improve the scheme. So I shall look forward to your questions when we get to them.
Thank you, Ruth. I am going to push back when it comes to the questions on the delays on payments, because I think there are a lot more delays than you are recognising. But we'll move on to Simon Ayres. Simon, if you want to say a few words from TrustMark's point of view.
Thanks, Gareth, and good to see you all again. I'm slightly more refreshed than I was before Christmas, so hopefully I'll be a bit more sensible today. We have picked up a few areas that I need to feedback, and probably some of those are also concerns you have. But first, one of the actions I took from the last meeting had been to see if we could put a small group together to look at park homes and what was required around those areas. We did try to get some meetings together. Unfortunately, I think for various reasons and commitments that didn't happen. But there is now a group being looked at to be put together to bring a set of standards or a set of best practices together that everybody can operate within and work to. So that's, I know, happening, and one of my colleagues is currently talking to a number of people from the sectors and from BEIS on how we achieve that. So that has progressed, and I think that's probably in recognition of all the feedback we had from your group, Kenneth, here, in terms of looking at what we can do with that. So on its way. I can't really say more than that at the moment until we've had that first meeting and got people together. What we've also looked at, and I know there's been quite a lot of pushback around the areas in terms of vouchers and delivery in the park homes, those conversations we will be picking up within this same section. So there are some vouchers now going out to park homes, which I've had confirmation from the businesses, and we are seeing some of those things happen. In terms of audit and compliance, Ruth, as you probably just heard, has said there's sort of circa or over 20,000 vouchers. We have seen in excess of 2,000 lodgements, and those lodgements now are being audited. We've audited desktop-wise 35% of those at the moment because we have that additional time. And there are some challenges coming back from the audit, and I think some of that is probably for some of you that have been involved in ECO, that are now working within the Green Home Grant Scheme, and not probably recognise that there are some different requirements for lodgement in terms of the process and the need. And I'll talk about those in a second. Some of the other areas, so we are now out doing the physical on-site audits. So we have started to commence those. We are moving into them quite quickly, and I don't have the final stats yet, but we are seeing a varied set of results. So if I'm going to be completely honest and brutal, we are looking at the quality of delivery, and that quality of delivery in some cases is really, really great. In others, it is leaving some concerns. So we will be going back to those businesses concerned and to those schemes where we're finding it non-compliant with the standards. So I think, we need to recognise that everything that's going on here at the moment is very much about ensuring that when the work is being completed, and I know you've all had your challenges, that we get this work to the right standard, under the right rules. In terms of the lodgement itself, there are some questions that we've had around some of the requirements for lodgement. Some of those have been the design up front. Some of that's been around how it's been lodged. So the PAS requires under both 17 and 19 a requirement for a design to have been completed. Slightly different in 2035, because you're then into the retrofit assessor route. But I think there's been some confusion in terms of why we are asking for it. Well, we're asking for it because it's always been in PAS 2030-17. It's a rule of the Green Home Grant Scheme. It may not have been required as such under ECO in some cases, but under the Green Home Grant Scheme it is, which is exactly the same for the ventilation. And there should be in your lodgement, when you're going through that process, you're asked to identify that you have undertaken ventilation calculations. I'm no expert, but I think it's something, is it 6,500 millimeters squared, with transfer in between rooms, etc., occupied spaces. And we are asking for a lodgement of a document clarification that that has been the case. We've taken quite a lot of calls, and I think I've seen some requirements also from the questions today, where you're asking why you have to lodge the ventilation requirement. Well, it's in the Green Home Grant Scheme rules, always has been. It's in the PAS, always has been, but there is a slight difference in terms of ECO and Green Home Grant and the application of that. So we are looking at how we will transition, how we will work with businesses to make sure that's all being met. There are some challenges in getting, I believe at the moment, the 25-year insurances, and we've had raised to us on a number of emails the challenges with some of the suppliers, but also the challenges about how the measures apply and the variation between them. What we've actually agreed, and we're doing at the moment, is we are talking to both the regulator and back to BEIS to look at those measures and those requirements. So again, that's through your feedback. We are now looking at those requirements, but also how we can bring more providers into the marketplace. Yeah, because some providers do not want to take the risk. And I know it's challenging, but in some of the areas you're operating, there is, you know, higher risk, and finding an insurer to provide that is always going to be a challenge. I think the postal and store inspections, we will be focusing on risk. So where we're seeing sort of high levels of feedback, some of, dare I say, we're getting feedback from some of you as businesses on other businesses. So there's quite a lot of, dare I say, sort of almost information coming from the sector about delivery. And so we will be focusing in those areas and making sure that we actually carry out the audit and compliance, yeah, post-inspection, where it's taken place. And it's probably worth saying that lodgement, if you lodge all the documents and put all the evidence into the lodgement, will go through. All right, we then pick up the post-audit work after that. So that's, you know, if you've lodged, then it will be in that process, looking at how the payment process happens. I think that's probably a quick overview from me, Kenneth, just in terms of trying to pick up some of those challenges and issues.
You've gone through and you've answered quite a few of the questions that we have here for you, so that's excellent. Thank you very much. Ruth, if you're okay for answering some questions, we'll just get started with the Q&A, unless ICF want to make any comments. I don't know if
it's Mark Allington here from ICF, so I'm the policy director. It's not come up with my name for some reason, so I'm saying 2001 at the moment. I just wanted to introduce, so on the call, David Miser guy, you know, from previous calls, who supports the technical activities, and we have Becky Calm on as well, who is responsible for the voucher operations on the you know, within the team. So we're here to support Ruth and come in and help with any answers where she needs it. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mark. Welcome to the call. The first thing, really, I suppose, and I think Mark might want to comment on this as well, or Becky, we are seeing a difference between what you're saying regarding the payments and the comments that are coming back from members. A lot of members are saying they're waiting and waiting and waiting without any feedback whatsoever on payments. The original terms and conditions implied that installers were going to get paid 5 days after completion of the work and submission of the customer's confirmation. This doesn't seem to be happening. Obviously, the TrustMark Lodgement and audit process slows things down, and the ICF audit process is obviously slowing things down as well. But we'd like to know a little bit more about what is going on during that process that is causing the delays to so many installers.
It's difficult to say, I think, because it probably varies a lot from case to case. And I know there were issues early on that have been resolved in a lot of cases. So I think there are perhaps issues with earlier vouchers that are perhaps more prevalent than more recent ones. I don't know if that's true. This is just from this is what I understand from what some of the installers I've spoken to have told me. And I think if there are still large numbers outstanding, because the stats that I see don't have large numbers outstanding, so it would be helpful to understand where, for obviously not helpful in this meeting, but if anyone does, I can take a follow-up after the meeting on that if anyone has a specific issue on that. I don't know if ICF colleagues got anything they can add on the sort of process that might help. I mean, I've already been through the kind of the stages, but I appreciate that doesn't necessarily answer your question about how quickly that happens.
Yeah, let me add a little bit there. So you know, as Ruth laid out earlier, there are a few things that need to happen for a payment to take place, and also, as Simon mentioned, so Simon said there's 2,000 lodgements made. Well, a TrustMark lodgement is a necessary step before payment can be can be moved along. So, but essentially there are several other things. So we in order to allow a payment, the customer must confirm that the work's been done to their satisfaction. They must confirm that they've paid the installer, share the invoice. The installer needs to upload the photos and submit the declarations, and then we need the TrustMark lodgement. So there's quite a few things that need to happen. And I would say at present, a large number of payments are held up awaiting customer confirmation that the work is complete. So certainly one thing you can do as installers, where you've done your part, is to move your customers along to do their part, and that will help to speed things up.
Thank you very much. That's helpful, I think. I hope. I'll move along a little bit from that, from lodgement to payment being made. Is there a sort of time frame that they should be expecting, assuming the customer has submitted their satisfaction documentation?
I think, again, it varies from case to case. I think it would be hard to say. And I think one of the challenges was that because it said in one of the guidance documents previously 5 days, but in practice, that varies. It's not 5 days. It could be less, it could be more. And I think which is why we've sort of been trying to be a bit vaguer about it, because we don't really want to say yes or definitely 5 days, because it clearly isn't always 5 days, as you can all state from your own experience. So we're trying to be a bit more realistic and say, look, it varies from case to case. It will happen as quickly as it can happen once all the information is in. And I think that's the important thing to bear in mind, is that where there have been delays, it has usually been because there's been a problem further back in the process. There may have been some exceptions there, and I appreciate that won't cover everyone. That won't answer the question for everyone. And I know that doesn't completely answer, but I know that isn't the answer you're all looking for. But I think that's the best answer I can give at the current time.
Okay, thank you. Simon's just indicated that he is dropping off the call. He's got to go. He has answered most of the questions that we have for him. There is a question regarding the contents of cavity wall enabling work, and this might be something that touches in all three areas. So I'll jump to that one, and that is Neil Whitfield and from Dean Cook. They're basically asking for clarification on cavity wall extraction and on the enabling work for cavity walls, as SIGA and building regs seem to apply one thing and the help desk says another. It's very unclear what is actually allowed under the enabling work for cavity walls.
I think we've probably talked this through. I think if there's clarification, Ken, then Gareth, we can arrange for that. But as I said in my little note to you, then if you send me that question, then I'll get that clarification back to you and issued.
Thank you.
I'm going to have to do now, I'm afraid. So apologies.
Yep, that's fine. Thank you very much, Simon. As ever, great to hear from you. So thank you. We'll follow up on that. Carry on with that question. I don't know if ICF can, or BEIS would like to comment on the fact that there's differences in the clarification coming out from the help desk. The installer's phoning up the help desk and getting told one thing, and the customer's phoning up the help desk and being told the exact opposite. One's being told cavity extraction can take place as an enabling, the other
enabling
action. The other has been told it cannot. We believe
that's concerning if you're getting a different message in different places. Can I ask you to send me the detail on that, and we'll follow up and get the situation clarified.
I don't know if either Dean Cook or Neil Whitfield would like to come back on that issue. Doesn't look. Oh,
Remember to unmute, guys, if you
I'm doing it. I'm doing it. Apologies. I was fiddling with IT, and it's not my strong point. Cavity extraction is my strong point. There's a lot of issues around debris and insulation in cavity walls, which is causing a massive amount of problems. Any sort of insulation measures that you attach to a wall will have an impact on that. And it's important that the cavity wall, which was designed to be clear, is made clear. During the build process, there's lots of debris falls down cavities. That needs to be checked before any insulation goes in or on the wall. And we know from experience of previous eco schemes that, you know, the technical monitoring that was taking place at that time missed quite a lot of bad practice, poor installs, incorrect materials, wrong exposure zones, etc. So we know that there's probably 3 million people suffer with poor cavity insulation. And notwithstanding those people, there are obviously those who've, you know, carried out and followed things and tried to maintain the properties, who've had new windows since the cavity installation has been put into place. That then breaches the SIGA guarantee. It breaches any kind of insurance that it would have had on that. So obviously they're in a very sticky wicket. They can't get that done. So we really need to have some facility in place where we can, you know, get these cavities checked, get them clear and back to where they should be. So we just need some clarification on that, please.
I was just taking some notes, and if you can send me the contact details, I'll get back to you offline on that one.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Right, so we have a question from Bill Snide at Home Sun. He's asking, they've received a message saying that currently their applications are with the audit team for review. Are some applications for some measures being reviewed more than others? And how many applications are currently waiting for reviews to be carried out?
So obviously I don't know any detail about these specific applications, so I can't obviously comment on them at all. I'm not, and I assume ICF won't be able to in an open forum like this, so I'm sure they could discuss separately with Bill if he's got any specific questions on them. What I think we can't really say exactly what percentage is going to be in audit at any particular time, because that could, partly because some audits are targeted, some are random. So obviously it depends on exactly what's going on. But also you can imagine that if we start giving out too much information around the audit process, and that it potentially could lead to further non-compliance. So it's quite a difficult question to answer. I think I'm trying to think what I can say that would be helpful here, actually.
So just to be clear, the question does relate to applications, not to completed installations. So
yes, so
yes.
There are different states. Some audits are done ahead of voucher issue, ahead of installation. Some are done after. Different types of audit for different reasons usually. So some are picked up beforehand. Again, it's difficult to say exactly what. I can't talk about details of your case, even if I knew them, but I don't, as you can imagine. I'm trying to think if there's anything helpful I can give you in terms of the detail here. I don't know if ICF colleagues can add anything more to that. But
the point I'd make is that, you know, we had lots of customers who put applications in before Christmas, and we haven't had sort of any vouchers back. And people have been told that their applications are complete. They're just sitting with audit, but it just feels like they've gone into a sort of black hole. So, you know, I just wanted to get some idea as to sort of how long, you know, how big the queue is in the audit in the audit team. Is it normal to be waiting for 6+ weeks for any sort of feedback? at all?
I think that would be fairly unusual, but I'm gonna defer that onto ICF as to how exactly the rate of. I'm not an expert on our audit process, so I don't know if they can provide any more information on that. But what I would say is that what we aren't doing is that, so there isn't a kind of it isn't about particular technologies or particular installs. Usually it's usually yeah, it's usually slight. I'm going to say more complicated than that, which is not very helpful for you, I know. So I'm going to pass. I don't know if ICF can add anything on this one, because I'm afraid without knowing the ins and outs of the applications, it's hard for me to answer anything helpful on this one.
Yeah, I think I'll say a few words. So essentially, when it comes to the audit planning, you know, as Ruth said, we can't say too much about the compliance approaches and the strategies deployed to look at that. But essentially, there's not a specific sort of focus on a particular measure type or anything like that. I would say at present. That doesn't mean that there wouldn't be at some other stage in the process. The other thing is in terms of getting the audits through, and we don't have a massive queue there either for the audits that need to take place. What we are experiencing a little bit, as I expect you are as installers as well, is a certain reluctance among some householders to you know, to have people in their homes to undertake audits. So that's certainly something that we're experiencing a little bit at the moment. As Ruth said, audits take place before and after installation, with a proportion of the voucher applications.
Okay, thank you very much. Hopefully that's answering your question, Bill. So we'll move on to the next question, which kind of relates in a little bit. 2 Zoom calls ago, Scott Davis from GHE Solar asks, 2 Zoom calls ago, ICF said they were working on submissions that have been sent being visible in a mailbox. When is this likely to happen? So when are installers going to be able to see what their subcontractors are submitting on Sightline, for example?
I'm going to pass this one to ICF, as I think they probably have clearest view on when these changes are going to happen.
Yeah, can I bring Becky in on that one?
Sure.
I'm trying to unmute as well. So the timeline is something that we're working on closely with BEIS. We don't have the ability to say right now exactly when that functionality will come online. It is something that we're working toward very diligently along with BEIS, but we don't have a timeline that we can give you, and certainly happy to reconvene with BEIS and follow back up.
I suppose I should add to that we do recognise the frustration with this not being there for you. So we are, and it is something that, you know, we're aware of and we're trying to do something about it, but I appreciate that it's not happening as quickly as you'd all like to see it.
This is one of the things we have more questions about than anything else at the moment, is information from the scheme on submissions. Is there a portal? Can there be a portal that we can access? Can we get more information on when a voucher is sent out to the customer? Can we get more information about what voucher has been sent out? All of these sort of details should have been fixed. They were raised back in August. It's just adding a little bit of information to the emails that are being sent, but the communication's not catching up. And I think a number of installers are getting a bit frustrated by the time it's taking. I don't know if, Scott, you want to come back on that yourself?
Yeah, it's just going back to the payment situation with it, I think having this information of some sort, so the installer themselves could track what's happening to make sure all those processes have been followed. That would help, I think, with the whole flow of everything, because you've got, if you're working in eco, you'd have the installer doing the install. They'd be bringing back, maybe taking details on site. That would then come back to the office. The office would have things checked. Potentially there might be a managing agent checking that in between. It would then go to the utility. That would be validated by eTech. So you've got 3 or 4 processes checking the submission as it's going through. Whereas in this situation, you've got effectively the installer on the ground making the submission and no ability to see what's on that submission, which, I'm sure cascades problems for you guys as well further down the track, with the sort of the validating vouchers, making sure the information's all there and correct. And yeah, I think just that information would probably resolve a lot of the crinkles in the system. But that's my penny's worth anyway.
Thank you, Scott. I don't know if anyone wants to come back on that from ICF.
I don't know what ICF. I'm just going to add that I do understand where you're coming from, and it is something that yeah, I completely appreciate would make the situation easier for installers. So we're as I know we've said before, we'll take it away and see what we can do. And I say that again because I think it is something I do understand the frustration here.
I'm going to Ryan from Curb has some similar comments, and I don't know if you want to say anything, Ryan.
Yeah, sorry, I was just coming through there. Yeah, just the main thing. I have asked if there isn't a portal or some sort of system that lets us to track all this. Can we not just have, can someone not just do a data extract and send us a spreadsheet and say, look, here's all the vouchers are in the system for you, or just something we just have a manual workaround, because having no sight of our work or our pipeline, either things come in or things that we're waiting on payment, it's impossible to manage a business. And the process for getting paid is out of our control. You've got a loft installer now responsible for whether you get paid or not. So to expect using an app that is doesn't seem to be great, doesn't save any information whether it's been sent or not, and then relying on a customer to redeem the voucher when we're not allowed to be with, to do it for the customer. So there's 2 key parts of the process there which we've got very little control over. The only thing we actually control is the TrustMark submission. Yeah, we could have all our money stuck because customers haven't done their part, or because the installer didn't do their part properly, or something didn't go right, and we've got zero sight of it. So if we can't have a portal, which I think we were told we'd be having several voice conferences ago, then let's at least do some sort of temporary manual data extract, send it out to installers, just do something just to sort of get over these problems. And that can be done for both vouchers and payments.
Thank you, Ryan. I think that's a good point, well made, and hopefully ICF can take that on board promptly.
I think we act under instruction from BEIS, so what facilities are needed are determined by BEIS, and we will then implement them. Okay.
Thank you. So going on from that, we have a question from Emma Adams, who also asked a question about the portal, or need for portal for installers, but she and Emma Bohan from IMS, so both asked the same question, and it's a question that's been previously asked, and yet we're still having problems getting an answer to. Has anything been put in place to support the bulk voucher applications for blocks of flats and community heating measures? So where a number of homeowners want to group together to use their vouchers for community heating How do they go about that?
At the moment, it would not be possible for them to make an application, which is something that we are working on, because we that there are some crinkles in the T's and C's that we're having to look at around this. I think I can provide a more detailed response, actually, so I'll need to check in with colleagues who are actually working on this as to the detail of where this is. But I know on the community heating question, we've had a few people coming back to us on that. I mean, the nature of a community heating system, actually, it might be possible to apply for one of those, depending on exactly how it was designed, which is because if you think about it, a consumer can do an application for a heating system in their home. So depending on how it's working, it might be possible to still get one of those through, but there isn't the facility to do a joint application at the moment, and we're working on trying to fix that at the moment. I can get a more detailed response on that and come back to you.
I don't know, Emma, either of the Emmas are happy with that?
Can I comment about the blocks of flats? I mean, a block of flats, you potentially have got 30, flats in a block. We are blocks of flats specialists. We deal with the managing agent. We deal with the freeholder. All flats can share the sort of the voucher value. I cannot understand for the life of me why BEIS will not allow this to happen. There are so many blocks of flats. We have got them. We've surveyed them. It is such a simple process to do this, to do a block of flats, because we would survey the whole block and then you just split it. So please, there are so many opportunities there to get blocks of flats done.
Thank you. I don't know if the other Emma wants to say anything on the board.
No, I think the rules indicated that potentially, the particular project we were looking at was a cul-de-sac of 5 residents who were looking at whether they could do some form of small district heat system. Rules indicated possibly, I guess we need to see the T's and C's ironed out as to how they would go about putting that application together. I think if it's doable on a legal homeowner basis, there should be the ability to utilise the funding towards it, you would think.
Yeah. Thank you. Right, we have a question here from Hazel Hill from Bracknell Forest Council. Residents are now asked at the next stage before the voucher will be issued to provide extra information. They're being requested to supply council tax bill, utility bill, proof of ownership, etc. This was not outlined in the original grant details. Why?
So it's difficult to say without knowing the specific cases, but typically people are only asked for them when the land registry check that is done as part of the application process returns a fail. So if as part of the application, the automated application process, we can't prove that they own that property, and that it's lived in permanently, that it's their residence, not a sort of a holiday home or something. Then we have to seek. Then the scheme administrator will seek some more information, and those are the types of information they'd be looking for. I think this has been particularly the case for park home applications, but it may have been for others too. I could obviously, without knowing the details of the cases, I can't sort of provide any more detail. But typically, those are things we'd ask for if an application has failed at the land registry check.
Correct. Yes, I can confirm, Ruth. You're absolutely spot on correct. Certainly, we take the information that the applicant provides, the customer provides, and we use that to confirm the ownership, land ownership. If there's something that comes back from the third-party validation company, which is Experian, and we're unable to have a clean match, a clear match, then we request additional information in hopes of making some corrections, perhaps to some of the information that the applicant provided based on this alternative data. and then we can run their validation checks again. So this is being done with the intent of helping applicants move through the process.
Thank you very much. I don't know if you want to come back on that, Hazel. Well, we'll move on to the next. We'll move on to the next question. This is one not from one of our members, but they claim that they, along with a number of other installers, have been suspended from the scheme without being notified. This concerns and begs the question, what is the process for suspending an installer, and why are customers informed before the installer if there's a suspension taking place? So what is meant by suspensions is the first thing.
Well, that is a good question, because I don't think that we have a thing called suspending, which is why I'm slightly puzzled by this whole question, actually. I mean, there are installers who for whatever reason haven't got through the registration process and won't have been registered. You know, for example, they don't have the appropriate certifications or TrustMark registrations in place. And I guess there could be a situation where someone has, those installers have quoted as well, and so then the customers received a thing saying their installer isn't registered with the scheme. I guess that could have happened. It's difficult without having the detail of the case here, to be honest, to know exactly what's happened. And so I can understand that the person doesn't want to talk about it in the open sort of groups. If they can send me some details, and I can try and find out what's going on. I don't think there's a suspension as such. I mean, suspension is a bit like, it implies almost sort of temporary, doesn't it? So I know that, you know, installers are registered or not registered, and there can be situations where if rules are broken, they were, I guess, deregistered would be the word. I suppose they'd lose their registration. But I think that is you know, without knowing the details here, I can't know what of that has happened, or knowing if this particular installer was registered in the first place and knowing what the situation is. So I'm afraid I can't provide any more useful information on that.
I've got some specific details that I will forward you, Ruth, on that. And it goes into quite a lot of depth of how they have tried to overcome varying requests for information. But it just seems it's just going from one bit to another as to why they're not being lifted from suspension. So I suppose we can get to the bottom of it. I'll send you an email.
Yeah, that'd be really helpful. Without knowing the details, it's very hard to say what's going on, if you know what I mean. I mean, generally, if something has happened, there would normally be a reason for it, but I would hope that would have been explained. So if it hasn't been, obviously we can have a further conversation about that with the installer and try and confirm what's happened here and make sure they've got all the information they should have had as part of that process.
The term suspension seems to have been used by the help desk. So I don't know if that's correct, or if it's just the fact the help desk's giving out the wrong information again. The next question is from, well, it's kind of come from a number of people and a couple of MPs as well in the House of Commons. The budget for 2021, when the scheme was announced with its 1.5 billion to be spent as part of a £2 billion package, we were told it was then going to be extended with an additional 320 million for next year. Will the 2020-2021 budget roll over to 2021-22, or are we looking at only 320 million for the next 12 months?
Yes, so this is unfortunately not the news you'll all be wanting to hear. The budget for 21-22 is currently set to £320 million. That was the announcement of what we were given in the spending review by the Chancellor, and as unfortunately all I can do from BEIS is try and make the best of the money we've got. So that's I'm afraid I know that's not the news you're all wanting to hear. There is obviously, you know, the funding for the original scheme was announced in the middle of a year, so you know things do change. But the current budget that we have for next year is 320 million.
Does that mean that all installations for this current year's budget have to be spent by the 31st of March, so in the next 8 weeks?
There is the opportunity to extend vouchers as they need to be. So we already have an ability to extend a voucher. So if a voucher needs to go into next year, that's fine. It can come up, but it will come out of next year's budget, then not this year's budget.
Right. So this is what I'm asking. So this year's budget ends with the payments made by the 31st of March, not the vouchers issued by the 31st of March.
I believe it's about work. So usual government practice in this case is that stuff we pay for, the work has to have been done in the year, but we can pay it into the next year.
Okay. So
that's usual government practice around paying payments. I mean,
okay.
So
once
any contract arrangement in government.
So in essence, if the customer signed off and the TrustMark lodgement's been done by the 31st of March, it'll come out of this year's budget, not out of the 320 for next year.
It should do, yes. That's the way government finance usually works. Anyway.
Thank you very much. There's a couple of questions on that we just wanted to get clarification on, following the answer that Anne-Marie gave in the House of Commons.
One thing I would say is that we are taking extensions of vouchers in this year into next year, because we do appreciate that, you know, it's not, with particularly the way the weather is at the moment, it isn't always possible to do the work at the moment. You know, doing external wall insulation, this isn't really the time of year to do it. So if there is good reason to extend the voucher and the customer applies for an extension, it will be pushed into next year, and then would obviously come out of next year's budget.
Okay, that's it. Thank you for that. That's clarified that very clearly.
Can I just add something there, Ken, just very briefly?
Sure.
I don't think really it's too much to worry about right now, on the basis that there's obviously been very little of the £2.5 billion spent anyway. I think, you know, the best thing we can do is just get on with it and iron out the problems. But I'll talk about that later. I just want to be a little bit more positive about it.
Yeah, it's 220 million is not a small amount of money. Yeah. We have a question regarding installer committee. Could BEIS look at putting together an installer committee to gather information on the issues with this scheme and others, such as the Hugs and Cosy Warmth, and ensure that problems are addressed quickly and we don't have major problems with other schemes in the future?
So I was going to briefly actually mention Hug, because you mentioned Hug there, and that's it's worth me saying the Hug is my colleagues working on Hug are doing quite a lot of engagement generally around trying to make sure that, you know, we have because they've had a bit longer to work on their scheme design. I think they want to make sure that it's more that it works better, to be honest. So so they're actually in the process of doing some workshops at the moment with sort of industry associations and things of that sort. I don't know if EEA represents that at the moment, but I'm sure that you could get. I'm sure I can arrange for an invitation if that would get to give an opportunity to to sort of represent the members in this process. So I know there's something that so that's a bit of a slightly more something I can say that's a bit more helpful on the in terms of an installer committee would I guess would be quite difficult to get fully representative. I mean, we do speak to quite a lot of installers, and one of the reasons I come to events like this is because I want to hear from you out there on the ground as to what this is actually, what the scheme is actually like, and this is, you know, how I find out and understand problems, and then can try and do something about them. And I know quite a lot of you I've also had individual conversations with after meetings like this, and through other groups as well that I go out and speak to. So one of the reasons we do that is precisely to get that installer view. And we also talk to the certification bodies every week. And so I know some of the installers are feeding through the certification bodies with their concerns as well. So we also speak to them weekly to get more views. So we are getting those installer views, and I think the other schemes are also thinking about how they can do it, you know, as part of their policy design as well, which should make things better.
Okay. I think we're getting through most of the questions, so I think we're pretty much there for this session. I have one question from Peter Tom at Greenheat, who's saying, how many installers have uncoupled from the scheme?
That's not actually a question I can answer, because people don't typically write to me and tell me that they have. I do know that there are a certain number of installers who have said they don't want to take them all in the scheme, and obviously I'm really disappointed that that's the case, that we haven't been able to fix the problems and get the scheme working for them. I mean, obviously, if there is any way of bringing them back, then obviously I'd be keen to try and do it, because, you know, we want to make the scheme work for consumers and for installers. And you know, I do look at all the sort of correspondence we get on these things and try and sort things out, but there's at the end, it is people's choice. If that's what they want to do, that's what they have to do. And I'm all I can say is how disappointed I am that it's got to that point.
Yeah,
I'll just add from ICF's perspective, you know, all we're seeing is a steady increase in registration of installers with the scheme. So it's you know, we have twice the number now registered than we had in, well, say a couple of months ago, I suppose. It's a very steady cumulative increase in interest.
Interesting. That's not what we're seeing, but that's interesting to hear that. Thank you, Mark. I'm just having a quick look to see on the any questions on the chat session that urgently need to be addressed.
Is there maybe, I don't want to interfere too much, but if there is a chance, you know, for me to add something, it's just to build on what Gary said, you know, trying to somehow find the positive, you know, and just think of the future. And we are all used to dealing with frustration. We aren't in this business really to get rich or so on. Most of us is because we are passionate and about the environment and about energy efficiency. And it was really, it's a shame Simon is not here in the call anymore. It was really reassuring to hear him talk about quality and all that. And it's tough, and we'll find the strength to get through this, all of us. I did consider decoupling from the scheme, and thank you to Juan Bardan for talking me into sticking with the scheme. And I think we'll all find the strength to keep going, and I'm sure it will be positive. And it's getting better. The thing is to focus on quality. I think that's the next battle to conquer. It's more surveillance, more checking of quality. Let's weed out the cowboys. At least, you know, things are tough and it hasn't been smooth, but at least the positive is that probably the people were only for the money. are gone, that this study is not for them. So yeah, let's all keep strong and keep going.
Thank you very much, Andre. That's a very positive message, and good to see you with a smile on your face after the previous ones. But, so I think we'll wrap up now, unless anyone else.
Quick question from the small solar company.
Sure.
Really just want to check that all of the attendees are aware that we currently got people sitting at home not working because of the scheme. Now, if there was no scheme, people would happily do business with us and buy solar heating systems for us, as they always have. Because of the scheme and because there's a grant in the offing, they want to get the grants so the grant can assist them with their purchase of their solar water heating system. So an otherwise healthy business, it's been trading quite happily for 15 years. Currently, we're struggling to do any business at all because of the scheme. So you're currently putting people out of work. Now, we've sent out hundreds of quotes. We've got a load of vouchers, but because we haven't been paid for any of our work, we cannot take the financial risk to carry on trading and carry on working. We can't finance it, and we may never be paid. So this is our one and only form of income and our one and only business. So, I mean, I think, yeah, Ruth, what can you do to help us? You can't, your team can't communicate with us. They can't pay us. They can't answer our questions. Please, we're appealing to you. What can we do?
So I'm going to probably end up passing this one on to ICF colleagues as to what they can actually do. But what I will say is that, because obviously I can't talk about the detail of any particular vouchers that are stuck because I'm in BEIS, so I don't see them. But you were saying you're waiting for payment on some, so it's helpful to. So that's something we can potentially look into and try and work out what's holding those ones up.
What he's asking.
Yeah, help him.
Would ICF like to come back on that, please?
Yeah, so I'll speak. I just reiterate the conditions that we said at the start. So what's needed is the compliance steps to allow payment to take place. As Simon Ayres said, there's 2,000 that are TrustMark lodged at the moment. The payments are there's no real delay in making payments, as Ruth has said, once the conditions are met. And the conditions, as I said, are the customer must confirm that the work has been done to their satisfaction, confirm they paid the installer, provide the invoice, installer provides the Sightline mobile photos before and after installation and the declarations. TrustMark need to confirm that the project's been lodged. So when those conditions are met, payment can be made.
I'm very sorry. I feel you're misinformed. We have adhered to all of those. We've gone through the process. Also, when there have been any faults and some due to mistakes that we've been made, that we have made, we've been informed of this after weeks to then rectify them, rather than to be given an opportunity to correct a mistake early on and then be paid. It's a question of waiting a very long time and then being told that there's a problem. So can we please have some communication channel with someone who can tell us if we're going to be paid? Because otherwise we really need to get out of the scheme and cut our losses.
Yeah, I think we can take that one away, because my understanding was that where there were delays to payment, they were mostly being resolved. So if there is clearly still a problem here. So let me take that one away, and we'll come back to you on that and try and work out what's going on with those particular vouchers.
Yeah, we'll follow up with this and make sure that there's an answer for you, and we'll get that sorted as quick as we can.
Thank you, Kenneth.
Can I ask you that you pop an email across to me, please? And what I'll do is I'll forward the process on to the varying parties. I'm going to talk about this when I sum up.
Well, I think it might be a good point to start summing up now, Gary.
Can I ask a quick question?
One quick question, Ian.
From the first Zoom meeting we had, we have been asking for guidance on park home insulation work. We're now into February and nobody has given us an answer. It's absolutely shocking. As our friend from the small solar company said, there's companies going out of business. I've not earned a penny since last September because I've been working on this. I'm pretty sure people at BEIS and ICF have had their lovely salary every month on time. So it's time, I think, some of these people actually woke up, smelt the coffee and delivered the goods to the whole industry, because the country needs it now. Thinking to Tom Moore and the inspiration he gave us all, there's people not adhering to that. So it's time, because we can't afford to be doing installations and not getting paid, or that's our companies going to the wall again. And that'll just all be statistics that people, you know, they've got to waken up and produce the goods for us.
Thank you.
I've sent a letter to Ruth on Monday and I've not even had a reply.
Well,
I know it's only Thursday, but we're working in a fast-moving industry and people are going to need to get their finger out and get stuff moving. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. I don't know if you want to come back to that, Ruth, or...
I can acknowledge receipt of Ian's letter. I do have it. I have not yet got a response out to it, but I have got it. There's, you know, I don't know if I can, if there's anything more I can add in response to the specific comments. So.
I'm sure there'll be a response in due course. I think everyone is aware of the urgency, and hopefully Ruth will come back to Ian and to us as well, with some answers as quick as we can. I do know that there are guidance in the pipeline, as Simon alluded to at the start, but yeah, I think it needs to be emphasised. There is a need for urgency at both ICF and BEIS to address some of the issues with this scheme. Gary, do you wish to sum up now?
Yes, please. Now, some of this will be positive, but unfortunately some of it won't. Having a look through and listening to the whole of the call, and of course being on all of the calls that we've had so far, first of all, I'd like to thank Becky and Mark for joining David from ICF. Hopefully you'll see some of the issues that are happening. I've been speaking to people. We've obviously had this on a little later, so since Christmas I've been speaking to people, and I have seen some movement with the scheme. However, I have seen quite a lot of problems, and I've been listening to the installers. You know, the reason we run this is because we get the ear of the supply chain, and therefore the people on the ground that are being heavily affected by some of these issues. If we could actually bullet point what is needed, we'd need a very big piece of paper. But I think what we need to do is look at what is more urgent, and therefore, you know, let's look at some solutions rather than looking always at the problems. And I think we could quite simply have 3 or 4 solutions which would probably handle 80% of the issues. Now, this association is set up on 2 major factors: collaboration and communication. It is quite clear there is collaboration across the whole of this scheme by the amount of people that come on these calls. What is lacking is the communication. And that is very obvious. So I would urge communication, whether it be through the association to address some of the issues, would be fantastic. I have seen an increase in vouchers going out and to some of the difficult areas such as park homes. We have seen some people getting paid, but we are hearing of many that are not. So again, we could really do with some help with that. It was quite alarming that, you know, we're officially 6 months into the scheme now, and there's been 20,000 vouchers issued, and only 10% of those have been lodged. So in 6 months, we have had 2,000 lodgements. That's pathetic. How many vouchers are we expecting to get out by the end of this scheme? And therefore, £350 million is a pipe dream. If we carry on at the rate we're going, 10% of the vouchers issued being lodged is crazy. I'd like to know what has happened to the other 90%. Where are they in the ether 6 months on from the beginning of the scheme? I think one of the main things that would really help would be to have a portal, because I'm hearing so many times that a customer is hearing about things, mass emails going out on Christmas Eve, people being told that the company they're looking to work with isn't registered on the scheme. These are fundamental problems that could have been addressed had the installer been contacted first, where you was only dealing with a few hundred people rather than having to deal with 10,000. It would have been so much easier to address a simple situation with the wrong TrustMark number going on a voucher, because an installer has a number of different things that they install and have multiple TrustMark numbers. The customer wouldn't know which number to put on, put the wrong one on, gets an email saying, no, you're not registered for that scheme. Causes trust issues. And surely after what happened with Green Deal and GDIF, this isn't all about trust. The installers want this to work. From what I can see, obviously BEIS want it to work. ICF want to get paid, so they want it to work. So if everybody wants it to work, why the flaming hell can't it? Tug of war needs to stop. We need to all collaborate. We all need to work together. Issues, email me and we'll try and get them out. You know, we've been running these calls now. This is a 5th one. If you're not sure about the others, go to YouTube. The other 4 are on there already. We'll do a video for this one, and this one will also go on YouTube, and I'll put it out on LinkedIn. I completely empathise with the frustration that people are having, but I'm hearing more and more and more people are very, very close to having to pack it in. I don't want that to happen. This is a scheme to create jobs, to upskill people. Let's make that happen. So on a slightly more positive note, Kickstart Gateway, as you may have seen on LinkedIn, Twitter, and funny enough, Kwasi Kwarteng even liked a post that I put on yesterday. We're up to about 158 positions. Things are quite slow because we're dealing with WDP and we're just going through the process. We've only officially been approved 2 weeks, and we're on it now and we're starting to get things moving. As I say, we've got 29 companies have put positions in that they want us to help with. And I've got another 36 companies here to talk to. These are positions to help with this scheme, or certainly the majority of them are. What we need is this scheme to help with the kickstart stuff, to allow that to flourish, so we can help get these people, these youngsters, give them a chance, get them into work, and really move things along. I'm getting more encouraged every time I go on these calls. We've now got to just nip along quite quickly, get maybe a portal sorted and set up, because I think people knowing where their voucher is, people knowing when they're getting paid, helps them run their businesses. This is the key fact right now. We've got to help these people understand how they are going to run their business whilst they have still got a business to run. I want to thank everybody for coming on the calls and continuing to support the calls. You know, without your feedback, I really do worry what would happen. And without these calls, again, I worry what would happen. So thank you so much for supporting the calls. We'll probably have another one same time next month, if, of course, the people are available. I'm quite surprised this has actually been a reasonably calm call, but I also feel that people are starting to understand, you know, that we are getting over some of the hurdles, but like the Grand National, we've got a few more to get over yet. And I'm going to shut up now and just say thank you so much, Ruth, Mark, Becky, and David, and of course Simon, although you're not there anymore. Hopefully between now and the next call, we can get a big iron out and iron some of these crinkles. And let's get these people paid. And let's make sure these standards are correct. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gary. Thank you. I think we shall conclude on that note, and just say thank you again, Ruth. Thank you, Mark and Becky, and David, and Simon, and we shall hopefully see you all again in a month's time.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Right, that's us.